Shari has loved to draw and paint for as long as she can remember. She and her husband Steve have been members of Shir Malot since 1997. Their two grown sons, Jeremy and Eli, both grew up in our congregation. They attended religious school, became B'nai Mitzvah at our synagogue, and actually now Shari is our Omanut teacher, our art teacher at our religious school, and she's very popular. And she says it's one of the highlights of her week. I know it's one of the highlights of our students' weeks as well. Shari also has a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the University of Illinois and a minor in painting. She taught social skills for 3 years at Irvine Elementary School and taught art through the Meet the Masters program at several Irvine elementary schools. She currently volunteers for the ADL and is involved with their education committee. So if you want to follow along in creating your Jewish masterpiece, and I hope you will, all you need right now is a piece of blank paper, 8.5 by 11. Your printer paper is great, a pencil, and a fine line Sharpie or black ballpoint pen if you have one of those as well. So welcome, Shari. I'm going to make you spotlight you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's actually pretty hard to follow Elvis though. So we're going to take it down a notch. I love dancing. And Rabbi DePaulo, when you first asked me to participate and thought of the theme drawing Jewishly, I knew immediately what I wanted to do. I wanted to draw the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall or the Kotel for a couple reasons. Obviously, it's a sacred holy place. And the other reason is that brought me back to our temple trip to Israel, which was in 2005, and my memories of being there. That was the first time, and unfortunately the last, although I hope to get there if they ever let us in.
Someday we will travel again.
Someday we will travel again. It was a very emotional and wonderful journey that I took with my family, some very close friends, and then of course made great friends on the trip. So I knew immediately. But we're not really drawing, we're going to call it sketching today because of our time constraints. And I'm wondering if I have any religious, do you know if I have any students? Can you tell from the participants if I have any students?
You might with some of their families, but everybody's signed on with parents' names, you know? So.
Okay. So that's fine. I'm going to, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So let me get out of here. You can still see my screen. You can see the picture of my sketch of the Western Wall or the Wailing Wall. Can you guys all see that? Because even my students know that I'm terrible with technology. Can you see that?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to pretend that I have students in the class. So
we do have students here.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our paper and we're going to put it vertically. And what I tell my younger students is like a tower. We're going to put it vertically in front of us. And we don't use rulers in my classroom. So when we want to measure things, we use either our eyes to estimate, or we sometimes use our fingers. And that's what we're going to do today. And we're sketching, and sketching by definition is a rough drawing representing something. So this isn't going to be exact. It's not going to be a perfect picture of the Wailing Wall, but it's certainly going to represent it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab a pencil. Now, because I am using a document camera and I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, I'm going to just do mine right away with pen. But for you, we're going to divide our paper into sections and you are going to use a pencil. And we often measure with our fingers in my classroom. So we're going to go from the bottom and we're going to put 3 fingers down. And if you have smaller hands, you're one of my young students, you may want to put a 4th finger down. And you're just going to put a dot. You don't have to close your fingers. And you're just going to draw a line across. And everyone knows that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be straight. But that's what we're going to do. And that's going to be the ground. We're dividing our paper now in sections. And oftentimes on Zoom, there's silence in art because you really need to concentrate. So we're going to be okay with some silence. The next step is to put your hand down at the top. So your little finger should go to the top. And if you have bigger hands like I do, grown-up hands, you might put a dot at 4 fingers. If you have children, if you have smaller hands, or you're just a small adult, you might do 5 fingers, and you're going to draw another line across. And mine are kind of, doesn't matter. And we're kind of just going to sketch this image. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide the middle section into rows. Now, if I were really drawing the Western Wall, it's 62 feet high, and there's many, many rows of bricks. But since we're just sketching, we're not going to draw so many rows. Plus, we have time limits. So we're going to take about 2 fingers from the top, and we're going to put a dot. We're going to take 2 fingers again, do a dot, another 2 fingers, do a dot, 2 fingers again, do a dot. Doesn't matter, because when you look, I'm going to hold this up, at the bricks and the rows, they're all different sizes. They're all rectangular somewhat of shape, but not at all uniform or the same, because this wall was built way over 2,000 years ago. So we're not worrying about exactness at all, because this is just a sketch. Now we're going to take each of those dots and go across. And we have lines, and my lines aren't perfectly straight, and I don't expect anyone else's to be. Yours are in pencil, mine are in pen, just so you could see. So now we've got our sketching or our outline of our Western Wall, or our Wailing Wall. And the reason it's called the Wailing Wall is because we wept over the destruction of the temple. So I was mentioning that it's 62 feet high above the ground. It goes below the ground too. So that would be like about 12 of me on top of each other vertically, or like a tower. So it's a very, very big wall. And then what we're going to do next is just draw a skinny line under our top line right here. So maybe a finger's width. That's just going to give it an edge. Now, when you look at the Wailing Wall, you can see trees. So I'm going to show you this picture. And we're going to pretend that we're looking at it straight on. And look at how big it is compared to the people. And in the background, there's bushes and a lot of cypress trees. So let's start by outlining the cypress trees. And we want them to look like they have some depth or dimension. So cypress trees are like a cone. So let's just draw maybe 3 trees. So watch me. This is what I do when I'm with my students. I say my turn, then it's your turn. So if you watch the camera, I'm going to draw kind of a bumpy cone. And you can see I left some space, about 2 fingers or 3 fingers from the edge where I started. And then maybe, so it looks like one tree is in front of the other, I might start my second tree behind the other. And you can see it's kind of bumpy and irregular. I didn't just do this, because we want to make it look like there's some depth. Okay, your turn. And obviously, if you're adults, you could have gone ahead, but I'm talking to the students. And let me see if I can see everybody in a different view. I'm going to go to gallery view. Oh gosh. Okay. Oh, hi everybody. Now I can see everybody. And then I'm going to maybe take 4 or 5 fingers. I'm going to say 4, make another dot, and then start another tree. They're tall trees. And I'm going to give you guys each a few seconds to just do a little bit of that. And then we're going to go and we're going to draw maybe some shorter bushes. So I'm going to start from the edge. It's my turn. And I'm just going to draw, a line like that to represent a bush. Another one that starts about at the middle of this tree And then another one that attaches to that tree, and we're just going to have fun. There's no exact way to do that. Let's see, can you see all of that? Yes, okay. And now we've kind of got an outline. Now let's talk about these rows of blocks. They're made out of limestone. And limestone is a very old sedimentary rock. And it's made from organic remains of shells and coral. So probably from the Dead Sea when they built this wall. So we're just going to have fun with our rectangles. Let's start on the bottom and just draw some rectangles. I'll just draw a few, so it's my turn, like that. Some are skinny, some are fat, and go through the rows. Your turn, you can start doing that, and we're going to add some depth to these. And our timing is, so we have to be done with this, Rabbi DePaulo, at 2:30 or a little before?
A little before, if we can.
I just want to watch the clock. Okay. And on the top row, while you're doing that, this is just kind of an edge or a finishing. We're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to start drawing mine in. Again, what's so beautiful about these limestone rocks is they're irregular, so nothing has to be perfect. And of course, we're sketching. So a sketch makes it really easy. Now you can go over this in your pen. You can start doing that too, and you can draw the bricks in pen now. There's no reason really, unless you feel more comfortable, to keep going in pencil. This may not, and this is what I always say to my students, we may not finish this in one session, but you're always welcome to finish it after religious school or after our Zoom-a-thon or while you're listening to concerts. It was really hard to follow Elvis and Rabbi Zive, so we're mellowing it out a little bit. And I'm just gonna, you can do this pretty quickly too. I'm gonna give us time to just enjoy the flow of the ink if you're using ink or the pencil. Keep going. Oh, I see people looking down, which means there must be working. If you want to turn your cameras off, we always have an art show at the end. A shout out to my son, Jeremy, who's watching. I can see his screen. I can see his screen is off, but okay. So this is a view as if we were a little bit high up on sort of that top part. And we're looking at the wall. Now, of course, if we were really drawing, as I mentioned, there's just rows and rows and rows of these limestone. Now, as you guys are finishing that, I want to talk a little bit about the details. So if you have a chance from your drawing, just look up because you can finish later. Let's see, let me get this right at the right spot. Lots of cracks, lots of crevices. That's where people place their prayers. And we'll talk about that in a second. And there's foliage. It's kind of amazing that out of these limestone bricks, plants are growing. So to give an indication or a sketch of how this is cracked, I'm going to fill in with the dark pen, just shadows and crevices, and make my own. Some of them have really deep crevices. I've noticed that a lot of them go from side to side, like the rock splits like that. And you don't have to do cracks on every one, because again, we're just sketching. We're doing a representation of what this wall would be. And you can see, you sort of get the indication or impression of cracks and kind of cut out stone that is fallen away after so many years. And if anyone has any fun facts about the Kotel or the Western Wall, feel free to unmute yourselves and tell us. Or if Rabbi DePaulo is monitoring the chat, so if there's any comments or questions, she'll let me know.
I will just say that so far everybody's just really enjoying sketching along with you. And my personal favorite fact about the Western Wall is that it was actually the retaining wall, so that held back basically the level that the temple was built upon. And I think what's so powerful about this is that certainly at the time, 4,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, people maybe didn't think about the retaining wall. But now for us, because it's all that's left of what was the temple, it's taken on this whole new communal religious meaning for us.
It was pretty powerful when I went. I have
Yeah.
to say, and I'm sure that those have went. It cemented some beautiful friendships, made new ones. Just a wonderful experience. I think a lot of you are on the call. You know exactly who I'm talking about. It was our first temple trip, so it was sort of amazing.
Well, what I've been hearing from everybody, like so many people have talked about how meaningful these temple trips have been, and especially going to Israel. And that sounds like that's on the top of a lot of our lists for once we can all travel again.
And while you guys are sketching, I just want to, again, thank the Ruanes, my Havara, the Rileys. I know I miss people because I was like overwhelmed by people who were sponsoring me. So thank you. Who did I miss? I don't know who I missed, but that was really sweet. I wasn't, some of them were a big surprise, which was really sweet. So thank you very much. Now I know that you're still sketching, but for the interest of time, I just want to talk about indicating that these are trees and not snow-capped mountains, because at this point, these could be anything. So what we want to do is because it's a sketch, we just want to give an indication of leaves. And you know, leaves are just easy to draw. They're just kind of a smashed diamond. So wherever you feel like it, just draw a couple leaves to indicate that these in fact are living trees, cypress trees, and not snow-capped mountains or anything else. And no matter what state you're in, keep drawing. I'm just going to kind of draw along with you. So this gives us a real indication that there are not mountains in the background, that these are trees. And we don't have to fill the whole thing in because, again, we're just doing a sketch. The bushes are usually in clumps of leaves. And one way that we show depth or shading in sketching is using line work, if we're just using with a pen, and it's called cross hatching. So they're diagonal lines, and then you cross hatch over them. So since these trees have shape, they're round and they come around, you could do a little bit of shading with cross hatching towards the bottom, because it would be darker at the bottom of your trees, or on the side because they're going around. So light would hit the front if we were looking at it straight on. So you could do a little bit of cross hatching. And what I found out about these cypress trees that are all over Israel is that they're not indigenous to Israel. They were brought over to protect the orchards from the wind, much like the eucalyptus trees in California, because when we started farming, we had not much to work with in the desert. So we had to bring some things in. Okay, I can see we're running on time. So I want to talk about another art word for my students here, and that's scale. And when we refer to scale, we refer to how things size-wise relate to each other. So the wall is really, really big, really tall. So if we want to show people, we want to make them really, really small to show the enormity of the wall. And we're going to do this in silhouette form. And here's another art word, which some of my students already know because we've worked on that. A silhouette is an outline of an object or a person or a subject, and then it's all filled in. So the wonderful thing about sketching silhouettes is really free and easy. So we're gonna move on. And if you're not finished with the trees and all of that, don't worry, you can finish it later. So we want our people to be really small, our silhouettes of people. So we get the idea that this wall is impressive and huge. So we're going to start with the little dots for the head, and we're going to put them towards the bottom row on the bottom brick. So I'm just going to draw a couple dots. Can you see those okay? Because now I'm getting small. Just a couple dots, and then just sort of an outline of what a person might look like. So I kind of drew a triangle and filled it in, and then kind of rectangles for pants. We'll just say this is the male side of the wall, and maybe some arms so that you can see the scale. Now that makes the wall look big and the people small. And of course, when you look at it, you can see exactly what I'm talking about, the enormity, how impressive this wall is. And it's really easy just to kind of scribble. This is where we can just have fun when we sketch, just scribbling. And we can even put one little dot silhouette person here, just as long as we keep the scale accurate and small so that you can really see the enormity of it all. Give you a few, I have about a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I want to talk about the plants growing out of the wall because it's pretty amazing. Here again is pictures of the foliage. And again, those are going to be silhouettes of those plants. So the best way I can describe how to draw them is like you're drawing a pom-pom or a firework. So let me just draw it very big, and then you can draw it in the crevices. So here's my bricks. And out of the wall, I'm going to do strokes like a firework. I'm going to start in the center and go out, come back in, go out. So it looks like these plants are growing out of the wall. So that's one way to do it because they have a lot of tropical plants. Or another way is to just make squiggly marks and fill them in, almost like a puffy cloud. So let me do that on the sketch. I'll do one, what I call a firework over here so that you can see. And maybe I'll do one of my puffy cloud things over here. And you want to draw them where you've placed a crevice or a crack. And while you're doing that, I was thinking about Rabbi DePaulo's session that I watched earlier today about prayer. And I know that all of you know that when you visit the hotel, it's customary to place a wish or a prayer on a small piece of paper, roll it up and place it in the crevice. And that's a tradition. I don't know how long that's been going on. Is it from ancient times? I don't know. Maybe Rabbi DePaulo knows. Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I feel like it's probably more recent than that, mostly because we didn't have access to the Western Wall for a good long time there, not until after
That's right.
1967. So
it's a new tradition. So one of my friends, she knows who she is, gave a suggestion that on the back of this, when you're done, write down a little wish or prayer on the back of your paper, fold it up, roll it up, put it away, and take it out maybe 2 months, a year, and see if your wish or prayer was answered, or keep using this as a way to express your gratitude or your wishes, just like you talked about this morning, Rabbi DePaulo.
thank you. Oh, beautiful. Thank you
So
so much, Shari.
You're welcome. I think that's it. You can keep sketching. I'm just going to put a couple just squiggly lines on the bottom just to show it's a different surface. This is the ground. And now we have a sketch, which is a rough representation of our western wall.
Thank you so much. I really want to encourage you to go take a look at the comments in the chat. People
Okay.
really appreciated being able to learn with you. You made things feel approachable, and I think for a lot of people, creating art can be a little bit overwhelming. But what I loved about your session was that there is spirituality in this experience, and it is Jewish to create. Thank you so much.
I want all these chats. I'm gonna get a big ego. Thank you.
Yes, go take a look at them. We can see. Thank you so much. And with that, I'm gonna welcome Miriam Erdosi on, our member of our board of trustees.